Whoa, my camera's going a little crazy. I thought I would hop on here this evening and kind of hang out with you guys and work on some fall craft fair prep. What a better way to spend your evening? I don't know. Of course, we get a cat in the way instantly. That's how it goes. Oh my goodness. It is like halfway through August, which means it's basically fall, especially if you are in the crafting world or a musician. It's been fall. This year I plan on making a bunch of like different sized pumpkins. Tonight I'm just working on a small pumpkin on my 22 pin, but you can use any knitting machine. You can make so many different sizes of these things. I am just going to cast on real quick. And when you are knitting pumpkins on your knitting machine, you do want to make a really long tail before you start because you will be needing it later. So as you can see, I left a pretty good little tail down there. I am totally a cheater, especially when I'm making stuff in mass quantities. So I will be using my impact driver and a drill adapter. There's just no way I could crank all of this without my handy dandy impact drill. So we got that hooked up. And for small pumpkins, I usually knit 60 rows. Have you guys started working on fall stuff yet? I must admit, this is my first pumpkin that I've made all year. I have been slacking big time, to say the least. My in-laws were in town last weekend visiting. My parents are visiting this weekend. It has been a busy time trying to entertain everybody and have guests. We are finally getting ready to really hammer down and work on some crafting stuff. Well, we're at 30 rows, so we're halfway there. I do not know what I would do without my drill adapter. It saves so much time and energy, makes things so efficient and nice. I am very grateful to have it. On a big Addy, well, usually what I have been doing is making a pumpkin stack, which is a big, medium, and small pumpkin. So for the medium one, I've been doing 60 to 65. That just depends on your tension and your yarn. And for the large one, I've been doing 80 rows. Not everybody does this, but my pumpkins, I always make them 2 layers thick. So you're not going to have stuffing showing through. You're not going to have it look thin and spacey. So it might be a couple more rows than if you were following somebody else, but that's just my personal preference. All right. Now that I've done my 60, I am just going to cast off really quickly. This 22 pin is broken. I really need to invest in a new one. I just have not yet. The handle on both of my 22 pin machines have snapped off, and I know you can buy a replacement handle. I know you can just buy a new machine. I've done neither, but it's still functional, and especially when it's fall and I'm working on pumpkins, or it's winter and I'm working on snowmen, I don't want to use a brand new machine because my machines get used and abused for those months. They do not get a break, and I do not want to abuse a brand new machine. I kind of want to pamper it a little bit. Now that we've cast off, I'm going to go through the end. I always call it the butt. I don't know why. We're just going to tie a little knot here. Now we're going to go to our cast on and do the same thing. Again, we're just going through the very end and tying a knot. You don't need to tie a knot here, especially with the way we finish our pumpkins, but I like to have the knot just for extra security. The worst thing is when you buy something handmade from somebody and it unravels or something goes wrong. You just don't want that to happen. So I'm going to go through the very center on the inside here, and I have just tucked my cast on inside of my cast off, almost like you're making a hat. So this is what we're left with. It's almost like a hat. We have both of our ends on the outside, and I'm just going to trim a decent sized piece of yarn off of my cake and grab another yarn needle. And what I do is we're running it between these two layers, and we're going to use this piece of yarn to cinch up our pumpkin. I'm just going to come out right beside here. I'm going to stand it up, and we're going to put in some polyfill. And your pumpkin is going to be a weird shape as you're starting out. That's totally normal, but it'll take shape as we go in and make the loops. You want to make sure to put a lot of stuffing. That way your pumpkin will stand up on its own and it's not slouchy and sad looking. Like, see, I didn't put enough, and we've got this going on down here. So you definitely don't want a weird looking pumpkin butt. So kind of stretch this out as we put it in. I'm going to grab some more. See, now it has filled out a lot better. We're going to tie these together as tight as you can. It's no worries if it's not super duper tight, or you can still see polyfill, because this will either be the bottom of your pumpkin or you'll be adding a stem, so it won't really be visible. So now we're going to go back to the bottom here where we have our tail from the cast on, and this is from cast off. We're going to go through the very center and shove our yarn needle down till it comes up, and our goal is to come out on the center here. We've made it through. Now you're going to pick a place on your pumpkin. You're going to run this up the side, and we're going to go right back through the bottom. Again, we're coming out of the center on this side, and pull nice and slow. Give it time to set up here. I have a lot of ends going on. I am going to cut these two ends, that way they're out of my way. There we go. Now you can choose how many bumps you have on your pumpkin. I usually try to make 4 or 5. It does not matter. It's whatever you think looks best. Again, we're pulling that tight. And tuck these into the hole. I think I'll probably use this as the top of my pumpkin. So tuck these in, and I find it helps to punch it in with a yarn needle. Kind of tuck those out of the way for now. Okay. Make another bump here. Yeah, I knew I took those in too early. It's okay. See, this is 4 bumps. I kind of like 4 bumps on this one. I was going to do 5, but I think 4 looks pretty good. So now we have to decide what side we want to be our top and our bottom. Honestly, they both kind of look the same. I think I'm going to use this one as the top. So what I'm going to do now, since I have this end up here, is I am going to take a piece of faux leather for my stem, and we're going to attach it. I am going to run this back up to the top. I'm just going to go through a couple of stitches down here to anchor this into place. And then we're going to go up to the top. And then we're going to attach our stem to both of these pieces of yarn, because when you have 2 to attach it to, it's more stable and it's not going to move very much. So again, I'm just trimming those to be even. We're going to go through both holes here, and then I'm just going to go straight down into my pumpkin. You kind of want to move it, that way it's not pinched. There we go. And pull our yarn down and through. There's our little stem. So now we're going to come back down here, and we're going to anchor this into some stitches. And then we're going to tie our 2 ends together. Then you can either cut them or tuck them up inside. I'm just going to cut these. And you guys have been on the journey with me of making my first pumpkin this year. First of many, I am sure. So I'm going to set this guy to the side. I think I'm going to make a gray one next. Again, we're going to cast on. And I am just using scrap yarn from my stash, honestly. I have a cake making machine, and my husband built me a pegboard, and it is full of yarn cake. So this is like the perfect project to use up some of those scraps that you just don't know what to do with, because it doesn't really use that much yarn. Again, we do 60 rows on the small Addy if you are wanting your pumpkin to be 2 layers thick. We're at 20 rows. Rows, we're halfway there. We're at 60. Cut a decent tail here. Go around once with no yarn in the feeder. It's just like taking off a hat. We're going to use our yarn needle. We're going to pick up every stitch. And tie this tight here. Come to the cast on over here and do the same thing. Of course, we did leave quite the long tail for our cast on. Tuck this inside. Now we're going to cut a piece and get ready to stuff our pumpkin with polyfill. I like to put my hand in and smooth it down to make sure our layers are even. Now we've got both of these out, I'm going to spread it apart a little bit. You want to make sure your yarn doesn't go back in there. That defeats the purpose of what we just did. I spread it. Now we're going to grab some polyfill. And again, I like to spread apart as we put it in. Do one more bunch here. There we are. See, the bottom's looking good. Now we are going to start with dividing up the sides of our pumpkin. So it's going to go up here and put our yarn needle down through the center. Our goal is to come out in the center here. Push. Yeah, there we go. Got that one side starting to pucker in. I'm going to do a second little divot here. What are the bumps on a pumpkin called? I'm sure they have a name. I don't know. I love plants and I love gardening, but I've never been one to like learn the technical names for things when it comes to that. So I guess I'll just keep calling them pumpkin bumps until someone corrects me. Here is the third bump. Move these tails out of the way. And I am going to make 5 on this one. So here's this side, and then here's this side. I do think I am going to use the side that has the 2 tails sticking out as the top. So I'm going to anchor this guy in here. And then I'm going to take my yarn needle and I'm pulling these 2 sides down to the bottom. But first, we're going to add our little stem. For my stems, I just use faux leather. You can buy it any craft store. Amazon is where I got this yarn. Whoa, sorry. Where I got this leather, not this yarn. They sell it at Walmart. It's not very hard to come by. But I like to just cut it in strips and then use a hole puncher to make the holes for my yarn to go through. And it hasn't gone wrong for me yet. I think it's really cute. It adds like a nice little accent. We're coming down to the bottom. Now this right here, this is the string we were using to make our sides. So I'm going to give this a really tight pull to make sure my last side here is tight. And then I'm going to tie it to my 2 that I just used for the stem to make sure everything's nice and secure. Now we're going to trim off these edges. And we have a second pumpkin. So as you can see, whether it has 4 sides or 5, they both look pretty similar. I think they both look good. This is like a holographic leather. I was kind of skeptical when I bought it, but I think it looks neat. I think I might continue to use that. I kind of like the color of it. And then this is like the matte color. I do think I will make one more pumpkin while I'm on here with you guys. And then I will probably hop off for the evening. It is getting a little late where I live. Now this isn't usually a color I would use for a pumpkin, but this is one of my favorite yarns. I bought it on clearance at Hobby Lobby a couple years ago, and I think it's really pretty. I bought enough to make a blanket, and you know, eventually I had someone order a hat with the yarn. I made a shawl. Needless to say, I no longer have enough for a blanket, so I would really like to make a couple pumpkins out of this for my own personal home because I think they would look really pretty, and I don't know, the color of this yarn just makes me happy. Again, we're leaving a long tail. I'm going to cast on. Reset our counter, because if our machine doesn't know what row you're on, you probably don't either. Okay, move my skein over here out of the way. Of course we get a knot. Why wouldn't we? Okay, here we go. Unravel this thing really quick. Perfect. I am going to be a little lazy, and I am just cutting out this knot for now because it's with the way the yarn was inside of the skein. I will use it for waste yarn later on. I just don't want to take the time to unravel it when I'm on a live. So we are just going to tie this together real quick, and we will move right along with our 60 rows like nothing ever happened. We are going to trim this though, that way it doesn't stick out of the bottom when we're going to make our pumpkin. There we go, so much better. We're at 30 rows, halfway there. And 60. So we're going to cut. Go through once with no yarn. And take it off like a hat. After just watching me do this twice, I'm sure you guys know the drill. So I do have a question for those of you who have been subscribed for a little while. Would you guys prefer that I go on live to work on a project, or do you like the uploaded videos better? I know in the past I've gone live a couple times, like working on blankets and stuff like that, but I don't know. I don't mind either one, but I would like to know what my subscribers enjoy more, and that'll kind of be what I do more often. So you'll have to leave a comment and let me know your opinion. Entire knot here. And I am trimming this cast on side. I left it way too long. Of course, now that I trimmed it, it looks a little too short. That's generally how things go, though. There we go. And tie us a nice little knot. Stretch it out. Now, I think I want this end as the outside. No, I want this end because it has more of the orangey color. So we're going to tuck this end inside. And we're going to grab our other piece here. I'm going to come out right next to where we went in. Right there. Stretch it out. Now we're going to add polyfill. And stretch as we go. I think I need to add one more bunch here. It just seems a little empty. Okay, now we're going to pull tight and tie a knot. With this yarn, I'm always a little bit more careful when I'm cinching and tying knots and pulling because it is a little more fragile. It'll break easier. We do not want a broken strand of yarn and trying to pick up a bunch of stitches. Just sounds like a mess to me. So now we're gonna kind of scrunch this down. Grab our yarn needle and we're going to make our divots in the pumpkin. Try to come down through the center. I pulled it off my yarn needle. How silly. Now this is a little bit of a cheater move, but we can also use these two ends. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring it to the bottom and then send it back up through the top here. Move this out of the way. Oh, it came out of my yarn needle. That's no good. We kind of need that, don't we? And now I'm going to use this end as well. I'm doing this because, as I said, this yarn is kind of a little more fragile. I don't want all of that strain being on one strand of yarn because I am afraid of it breaking. I do not trust this yarn very much when it comes to that. And I don't want my pumpkin to pay the price. See, like that one just snapped when I pulled it. So I'm glad that it did that when I could show you. Let's see. That support piece was holding right here. So as you can see, that is really loose now. It has come apart. What I'm going to do, it is still holding one other divot in our pumpkin. So I'm going to pull it tight and I'm going to anchor it down here to a stitch and we're going to tie it off. That way it can have a nice happy life at the bottom of the pumpkin. See, it pulled again. My goodness. Like I said, I don't plan on selling this one. I just really love this color for myself. And I thought it would make me happy to have it in my home. So we will see. Hopefully I do not regret making a pumpkin out of this. That's why you always need to be very selective about your yarn. Oh no. Okay. We're going to tie these two together, salvage what we can here. Here we go. And then I am going to grab my orange from my first pumpkin earlier. And that is what I'm going to use to attach my tag because we do not want our tag to go anywhere. So I'm going to thread this through both holes. I want this to be the top of my pumpkin. So I'm going to take the end of my orange, cut it so they're even, and put it on my yarn needle. And go down through the top. Maybe. Yep. We're going to pull both ends through. Adjust how our ends up here are. I'm tucking them into the hole. And as we're pulling through down here, We're just making sure the tag goes where we like it, right in the center. And then I'm going to anchor this onto a stitch. Just go through right there. We're going to tie these two orange to each other. And hopefully they will hold a lot better than our variegated yarn did. I am sure that it will. That's why I usually use acrylic for projects like this. This yarn here, it has 30% wool, so it is a little bit more fragile. I just love the color. I couldn't help it. But I still think it turned out pretty good, all things considered. Colors are kind of cute. We've got our nice little 3 fall pumpkins. If I were selling these, I'd sell these 3 as a set, probably for like $14 or $15. Last year, I sold these for $4 a piece, or 3 for $10. But the price of materials has gone up so much, and your time's going to be worth something. So I think I'll probably sell them for $5 a piece this year. Yeah. That is all I have for you, ladies and gents, tonight. I hope that this live was, I don't know, entertaining, enjoyable, informative, whatever you hoped to get from it. I hope you did. And I hope that you guys have a wonderful evening, and happy crafting, everyone.